Hey everybody, thanks for coming to this session. And yeah, this is kind of a game slash ritual slash science slash lesson kind of mashup. Um, it is built in Twine, but I'm going to be controlling it. I can send out the link to the experience later for people that want to do this themselves, because that's perfectly fine. But this is a debut, so I thought I would walk you through it, basically read you a story and intermingle some science information in there. So we'll be jumping back and forth a little bit. The first screen is basically an introduction of what this is going to be, because I know it's a little odd and people might be confused or maybe even a little bit nervous. So yeah, it's an interactive experience, and you're going to explore your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, which are the nerves that allow you to respond to danger and build safety. I'm going to turn off my video when we get started, because the idea is that you're either going to be looking at the screen and reading along, or you're just going to be listening to my voice, kind of story time here. And there is a pre-care zine, I'm calling it. So if you want to know more about the basis for all of this, and I'll click on that so you can see what the URL is. It's moboy.com/protectionsong/precare.html. And you can have a look at that. It just sort of takes you through what this is, kind of, and helps you get set up, and hopefully helps people not be nervous, because when they hear there's going to be something happening in the real world and they'll be doing something, they might get a little anxious, and I wanted to make sure people don't. Just as a content advisory, there is some incidents of sort of scary situations involving animals. So nothing bad happens, but in case that isn't matter for you, if you have kids there or something, just want to let you know about that. And we will be using our body, doing things like breathing and such. So be ready for that. So you can pull up that URL yourself, but I'm going to go back to the experience. Something about the science behind it. The parasympathetic nervous system that I'll be talking about is organized by a really big nerve in our body called the vagus nerve that runs to a whole bunch of different systems. But it has two main branches. One's called the dorsal, because dorsal means like back, so it's like in the back. And one is ventral, which means in the front. You'll be asked to follow along with some instructions in the real world, the physical world, in your house, wherever you are. So please fulfill them to the best of your ability and to whatever comfort level you have. Nothing's mandatory, so do what you want. And if you're shy, you might wish to be alone so you can like move around, and unless you're with somebody who you really get along with and trust, because then you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, we might do some things that are silly, but if you've even like been to any kind of meditation or yoga, it won't be all that weird. Yeah, and it's totally optional. If there's things that you're not able to do, you can just think about doing them. There's also, as I mentioned, no graphics, just this text on the screen. So you can, in a moment, you could even just turn off the audio entirely if you don't want to hear it and read along. Or if you prefer to listen to me, you can turn off, I'm going to turn off my camera anyway, so you can just listen to that. And just to keep yourself from being distracted, because it's really hard to like try to read and listen, I'd say if you're listening, use headphones, and if you can, and put the phone or device, whatever, out of sight if you can. So, yeah. here's some real world instructions examples. So what I would like people to do before we start is to gather a few items together. They are a glass of water and a small handful of nuts or seeds or crackers or something like that. And I'm going to just talk a little bit right now about the origin of the project so that you can understand it. But meanwhile, if you don't already have those things handy, some folks got the pre-care zine earlier, so they know about this, but you can go get those now. So yeah, the basis of this started a few years ago. I'm trying to become a better singer. I like to sing, but I realized I have a lot of stage fright, and I started looking into what's the origins of that, and like realizing that there are parts of my body that just, if I was facing an audience, just kind of like tensed up and I couldn't relax, and those parts were related to singing, so it was making it really hard to do that. And I heard about this thing called the vagus nerve, and that it's connected to all these different parts of your system. And I started researching it for that reason. And then I started learning more about what it does and how it's associated with our response to danger, and therefore trauma, because trauma is like memory of danger that you haven't quite processed yet. So I decided to like delve even further into that, and this was already happening. I was interested, a year ago, but especially when the pandemic came around, I became even more engaged because the nerve seems to touch on all these different parts of our body that COVID affects, like your lungs and your heart and your nervous system. And there's also, with so much like systemic oppression being talked about and fought against right now, just this whole thought of like how this nerve is tied up with all of these actual biological systems, and also with the trauma or the PTSD kinds of things that people are going to be experiencing. It felt like finding a way to help people know about this system, and through learning about it, be able to help soothe themselves would be a valuable thing. And I also, being a computer and game user, player, maker, I know that most of us sit around our computers like way too long. And I wanted to have something that was helping people who may not have had any other kind of embodied practice engage with it somehow by using a game and a story that might just lead people more gradually through it, who might not otherwise show up to something like a yoga class or meditation or something like that. So I hope everyone by now already has the things that they gathered, which are the glass of water and the small handful of nuts, seeds, or crackers. If not, cool, it'll be all right. So again, this is built in Twine, so I'm going to be clicking through, but you all can just ride along. And I'm going to turn off my camera so you can listen to me better. All right, here we go. It is the early Cretaceous era on the supercontinent Laurasia. You are a small mouse-like creature living on a landmass which will someday be known as Zhangzhou. Your home is a hollow at the base of a dying pine tree, where you hide from fast-running raptors during the day and emerge at night to search for food, to explore, and to procreate. Now, players, I want you to roll both of your shoulders in big circles a few times, up and down. You can lift your shoulders tightly to your ears and then just let them drop as gravity takes over. let them feel heavy. And then last, if you've lifted and dropped, then you can touch your chin to your chest and roll your head around in the circle a few times. If you're like me, it's like crickety, creaking, crackling. Cool. So it's early dusk, and those voracious raptors are out on their last hunts. Soon they'll curl up to sleep, but for now, they're stalking on powerful legs, seeking out a meal to sustain them through the night. And the dorsal branch of the vagus nerve, it developed first in reptiles like these dinosaurs, and then also mammals and other animals kept it in their systems as well. So along with that sympathetic nervous system that made these two possible kinds of responses to danger, there's fight or flee, which is the sympathetic nerve, and then shut down, which is controlled by the parasympathetic system. And we'll be talking more about those. So you woke up hungry, but it's still too light outside to be safe for a small mammal. Fortunately, you have a few seeds remaining from yesterday's scavenging. So players, I want you to take your food that you got. Maybe it's seeds or something else. I have some almonds and some pumpkin seeds, and just eat some of those a little bit at a time. Maybe even using both hands like a little creature. So our digestive system is connected to the dorsal branch, the back branch of the vagus nerve. And in situations of stress, the digestion can be shut down, or if you're under a condition of really life-threatening danger, the system can be quickly voided, if you know what I mean. And as you chew and swallow, you can sense the food passing down your esophagus and into your stomach, and you begin to feel thirsty now. The food has energized your body, and so you're ready to leave your tree and move quickly in your search for water. You emerge from your nest in the hollow tree, and as the sun just hits the edge of the horizon, and you breathe in the heavy, moist air outside. So players, I want you to put your hand on your lower belly. Now completely empty your lungs of air, like blow it all out. And then pause for a second with empty lungs. Then relax your stomach and let your body just take a deep breath so you entirely fill your belly downward and hold that breath for a few seconds. So you might have felt a little stretching inside of your middle area of your belly when you did that. And that's your diaphragm, which is right below your lungs. It's expanding downward to pull as much air as possible into your lungs. And little mammal, you move in the direction of a small stream that fills with water after every heavy rain shower. But unfortunately, the last time it rained was 5 whole moons ago. So it's really hot here in the Cretaceous. And in the heat of the evening, the high-pitched sounds of the insects are filling the air all around you. And you really start to look forward to catching some of these because a large, juicy bug for dinner would be really good right now. And approaching the banks of the stream, you only see dry mud. It hasn't really rained in a long time. So you crawl further down the stream bed and you eventually reach a place where the mud is less crusted and you can smell the greenness of moisture underneath. The noise of all these insects, thousands of them, is blocking out all the other sound. So you use your claws and you scrabble at the caked dirt on the bottom of the surface of the dry riverbed to find the fresh water below. So players, I now want you to take your glass of water and drink a little bit. You can, of course, have it at any point in this experience, but now's the best time. So you crouch down and you lap up some water from the puddle that you've just revealed, and this relief of being rehydrated refills your body as the last rays of the sun are reflecting on the glassy surface of the water. But suddenly the reflection goes dark on the water and you hear this terrible snapping of razor-sharp teeth right behind you. There's a spiked dinosaur. It's like a horrible reptile and it's looming above you. And your stomach lurches in fear and you feel like you're just glued to this spot and can't move. So I want you to imagine that feeling of being a prey animal facing this vastly more powerful predator right above you. What do? Well, you probably play dead. You just sit very still. Maybe it won't see you. You don't know. You just hold your breath and even just don't move your eyes. Just stare into the middle distance. So that reaction of shutdown is controlled by the dorsal vagus nerve, which is in charge of this most primitive freeze response. It's totally involuntary when we're in a situation where it would be impossible to escape, or we at least feel like it would be impossible to escape. Our bodies just shut down. In the United States, there's an animal called a possum that is notorious for doing this. But it's just like you freeze. And that's why when you see animals that are, say, caught by your pet, they're just sort of hanging limp. They're not dead, but they just go completely limp because it could save them and it definitely could reduce the amount of pain that they suffer. And people do that too when we're in a really stressful situation. Luckily for you, as a prehistoric mammal, you hear from a nearby pine tree some loud, high-pitched screeching sounds. And that makes the dinosaur look up. It's suddenly distracted by all these new noises. And you realize this is your chance to get away, to flee. And a burst of adrenaline just fills your system and it sends you running in the direction of the tree, which is on the far side of the creek bed. The dinosaur's head whips around on her long neck to follow your motion as she begins running in pursuit. You feel her hot breath on your fur of your back, and her guttural screech shakes your bones as her quills crackle menacingly against each other. So you're this small mammal, and as a player, maybe take a sharp breath like a gasp and pant a little bit. Use very shallow breaths because you're running away. So this is a feature of our sympathetic nervous system. It enables our all air-breathing creatures to respond really quickly and to rapidly oxygenate our blood so we can escape danger or that we have the power to fight back. And you're running with your eyes just on the muddy ground ahead of you. You can only listen to the high-pitched squeaks coming from the tree that are guiding your direction. And as you run, these chunks of dry mud are just flying out from behind your feet. Finally, you reach the base of this tree, giant tree, and you're like scrambling over the roots. You're trying desperately to get a hold of the bark on the trunk of the tree. And over here head, you can hear these cries of the other mammals. They're encouraging you and they're getting closer and closer as you climb. And your heart is just pounding with the effort of pulling your body further up the tree. So players, you can place your left hand or like your finger, index finger, on your left neck where that artery is. You've probably felt your pulse before. And you can, if you are panting, you can feel the speed of your heartbeat pick up. It should get slightly faster. Of course, if you're really running, it would get much faster. And this is the important part of our parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. The heart both sends and receives messages to the brain through this vagus nerve. And in fact, scientists have discovered that one really important way to measure a person's nervous system health is called heart rate variability. It's comparing the heart rate that you have when you breathe in to the heart rate you have when you breathe out. And it turns out that your heart actually adjusts to get slightly faster and slightly slower on inhalation and exhalation. And the difference between that is called heart rate variability. And if you have a higher variability, then it indicates your body is better able to self-regulate. That dinosaur is still down there and very frustrated, and she's screaming and it's like piercing your ears. But you reach a horizontal branch on this tree and it's just high enough above the ground that she can't quite jump up this far to get you. So you're safe in the tree and you watch as the dinosaur gradually loses interest and finally just stalks away, looking for someone else to have for dinner. And around you, you hear this like restless chittering and chattering of the other creatures that gradually quiets down as finally the immediate danger from the dinosaur is passed. And so players now take just a deep, slow breath. And if you really want to slow it down, a good way is to like pretend you're inhaling through like a straw, like and then blow it out the same way. And if you still have your fingers on your pulse, you might feel it decelerate as you gradually fill up and then empty your lungs. So now that the raptor is finally completely out of earshot, one of the other creatures on the tree approaches you on your branch and tentatively sniffs at your fur. Some of the older, larger of the mammals in the group with you start singing a call of welcome to you. And you have this instinct as a fellow mammal that wells up inside of you. And you answer back with a song that expresses your fear and your belonging. So players, I would like you, if you feel comfortable, to make some songs with your voice, some sounds rather. You can sing, but you can also hum, which I'm going to do, or chant if that's a practice you have, or even if you still have some of your water, you can gargle your water a little bit. I'm going to drink my water. These are all effective ways to stimulate the vagus nerve, which is sometimes called toning it, basically improving its responsivity to change in your body and in the environment, and like reinforcing the neuroelectric connections and the signals that it's sending. So you can hum along with me if you'd like. Wish I could really hear everybody. That'd be awesome. So the larynx and the vocal cords are connected to the ventral vagal nerve. So again, that's the part in the front vagus nerve branch. This developed later evolutionarily. It's an adaptation of the parasympathetic nervous system that mammals have that allow us to communicate with each other and to form social bonds of safety with one another. And as you, the mammal, begin to vocalize, many more tiny animals are peeking around their branches and out from their nests to peer at you. So all the mammals are cuddling and murmuring and getting ready for their adventures out in the evening. And you listen to them, and they're listening to you. And gradually, your pulse is returning to normal, and you let out a little sigh. So, last thing we're going to do is I'd like everyone to use their hands to touch their outer ears with their fingertips. You can even, which is a little hard if you're wearing earphones, I know, but you can maybe squeeze your earlobe a little bit or around the outer edge of your ear lobes and maybe bend the cartilage forward a little bit or down a little bit. And the reason that I'm asking this is because our ears are connected to the ventral vagus nerve, and mammals developed specialized inner ear bones that used to be jaw bones in reptiles and then sort of mutated over, millennia to become our inner ear bones. And it lets mammals have a much better range of hearing and much better precision of hearing. And so they can hunt in the darkness and don't have to have the sun to hunt. And also they can stay in contact with the rest of their group over distances that way. And, finding one another as fellow creatures and being together provides safety in a group, and it also makes us feel safe. So you can use the very tip, or if you have longer fingernails, the tip of your fingernail. So either your fingertip or your fingernail tip, and just put a little bit of pressure on the skull bone that rests on the inside of your ear, but do not stick your finger in your ear canal. It's only the outer part of your ear, but where it connects to your head, and press on that just a little bit. So mammalian young, as you probably know, are usually born quite helpless and need a little more time being taken care of by adults while they're developing. And so baby mammals communicating with our caregivers and all mammals communicating with our peers from that moment of birth until we can be more independent is a crucial survival strategy. So we really need our hearing to be quite good, and our ability to make sound, and in humans and some other animals, our facial expressions to communicate. And now night completely falls and you're all safe in the tree. I'd like to thank you all for participating in Protection Song. And one last little science tidbit is that humans, we co-regulate our nervous systems with each other. Other animals do too. And we do that in in-person and face-to-face interaction, and which is another thing that's so hard to find right now under the pandemic. But play is one major way that we've learned to co-regulate with one another and have keep each other safe and feeling safe and calm and good. And play is a really important special case because it allows us to feel this combination of kind of like energized, the sympathetic energy, which is the one that makes us need to move and act and do things. And combining that though without the fear of being under danger, but more with the positive feelings of the social engagement with other people. So if you have interest in what we went through today, or would just like to look at some references, or even need a bit of a come down or another relaxing exercise, I welcome you to look at the aftercare sheet. I'll click it here so you can see the URL. It's moboid.com/protectionsong/aftercare.html. So I have a few, it's my credits also. So thanks to everyone who gave me like scientific feedback on what I was doing and who play tested it for me and gave me great feedback. There's also some somatic exercises, and somatic means like things you do to sense the feeling of your body. There are some paleobiology links because I really got quite deep in the rabbit hole of the Mesozoic era of the world, and there's a lot of cool dino stuff and mammal stuff. There's some stuff about the vagus nerve and some stuff about somatic therapy. So I welcome you to look at that page. And that's all. Thanks so much.